Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am your vision host, Marion Bevington, and welcome to this show. It's a great pleasure to be able to share this platform with so many amazing people and to be able to share the wisdom that we've all gathered as a community, to be able to enable you to take on some of the great wisdom that we've learned over the years, that we've been practicing over the years. And all of the wisdom that we learn and practice makes this a better world for all of us to be. So what I wanted to share with you today, as the vision host, I've been looking into ways to empower people through how they see the world and how they see themselves. And one of the things that's become very clear to me through my own experience, and I only ever speak through my experience. I do occasionally slip up, and sometimes I'll tell you more about that as we go through this content today. But I try to speak only from my own experience because that's all I have. The rest of it is made up. And some of my experiences are made up. That's what I want to talk to you about today. So our experience is really, it's going to help to understand how the future can be for us, how great our future can be. And when we start to live an authentic life, when we start to live a life from inside ourselves, from our own heart, then life begins to open up in ways that we can never even imagine. So our inner vision, our imagination, if you like, is totally at the mercy of what we've already seen and experienced before. I'm sure you'd agree with me that it's very difficult to imagine or visualize things that we've never seen or experienced. And it's really great inventors and great visionary people who are able to share with us experiences that are not our real experience. It's difficult to take information on that we haven't seen, that's not been part of our vision. So how is it that we expand our inner vision? And what is it about the inner vision that I have today that is either going to empower me to be greater and greater than I am today, tomorrow and the day after? Or what is it about my inner vision that stops me in my tracks from being the potential great, amazing being that I am? Well, one of the things that is really, really important here is my story. And what I mean by my story is the collection of events that have happened to me up until today, because they are the only things that I know. And so I'm sure you'd agree, if you're like me, you'll know that your future is a reflection of your past very often. So your past is the building blocks to enable you to step forward into your future. And when we have a limited perspective of the past, then that will give us a limited possibility, a limited projection for the future. And what do I mean by this? This is also full of really great ideas that I've been reading about, been sharing recently about story. So firstly, my story is a collection of memories of things that I actually have images for in my mind, sometimes sounds, sometimes smells or tastes, because I'm sure you know that the smell of a particular cake can take you back into your grandmother's living room, or the smell of paint takes me into my teenage bedroom the very first time I ever had the opportunity to decorate my own bedroom. The smell of paint now always reminds me of that, how great that felt. And so our experience, our sensory experience, can trigger memories that highlight episodes from our story. But also we get other ways of receiving our stories. So we have For example, when our parents talk to us about things that we did when we were kids, or our friends share experiences where we helped them to create a great memory, and our brothers and sisters also share memories with us. So they stimulate a memory. So it was my past story, but I hadn't remembered it until that other person reminded me. And then there are photographs. So I can see a photograph sometimes of myself as a child, and that will stimulate some kind of memory. Or maybe your dad was an avid filmmaker when you were a kid, and you've seen yourself on videos when you're a child, you know, all those embarrassing ones when you're in the bath and you've got no clothes on, or you're making a fool of yourself as a little kid. And I'm sure there are other ways that memories get stimulated, but it's not just that the memory is stimulated, the memory is actually rebuilt. So whenever I go back to a memory, so I have a memory of when I was 3 or 4 years old. So if you'd been with me, it's what, 19, I'm giving my age away now. It's 1967 or 1968. It's Birkenhead, a working town very close to Liverpool, and it's almost Christmas. And it's the Christmas pantomime, and we're very excited. And I'm like 3 or 4 years old. I'm really excited. I'm going to see Cinderella. She's one of my favorites. And the pantomime has begun, and I'm sure you know the story of Cinderella. The pantomime begins, and the memory I have is of standing on the stage at the top of the stairs, screaming at the ugly sisters, "Leave Cinderella alone. She's lovely and you're horrible. Leave her alone. Stop being mean to Cinderella." And then I'm being ushered back down the stairs, and there's this man taking me back to the seat. And I don't really remember anything, except I do remember being on the stage, and I can see clearly the image of the ugly sisters and Cinderella all looking at me. And I'm there defending Cinderella's rights. I want Cinderella to be taken care of. Now, when I got back to my seat, my mum tells quite a different story from this point on. I've got the story from my mum. She was embarrassed. The way she said it, she was from Dublin, my mum. She said, "You made a holy show of me. I couldn't believe it. There you were, screaming at the top of your voice. I was so embarrassed. I was so full of shame. I couldn't believe it." So my mother had this feeling of shame. And I know that she would have told me off. She would have punished me at the time. And she would have been very embarrassed, and she would have pushed that embarrassment on me. Well, I'm a kid, so I just take what's pushed on me, especially by my mum. And I don't know what to do with it. So I take it in. So suddenly I think that I'm wrong, that I'm naughty, that I'm shamed, that I'm full of shame, that I'm passing out shame, I'm an embarrassment, that I've done something really wrong. And in that place, as a 3 or 4 year old, you'll know, in that place where you've brought shame and embarrassment and your mum is crippled by her own negative emotions, suddenly I'm in this place where I'm bad. I deserve to be treated bad. I deserve not to be loved. I don't deserve to be treated well. I don't deserve respect. I deserve to be punished. What kind of mindset do you think that stimulates in us? What kind of inner chatter then goes on to become part of my own inner voice that was developed out of that situation? Well, all of the work that I've done now has helped me to understand with great clarity that the inner voice in my head, it's not my voice. It's my mother telling me, "Yeah, you made a holy show of me. I couldn't believe it. How could you do that to me?" So making me feel guilty, making me full of shame, making me feel like I hate myself, like my mum hates me, my mum doesn't like me. All of that inner chatter, what will people think, was stemmed from and has been impacted and empowered. That negative inner voice has been empowered by that one experience. It's been given fuel by that one experience. Is this making sense? So when I've learned lots of different techniques, and one of the most powerful is a fabulous technique called matrix re-imprinting. Now, when I look back at that initial memory and I speak to my mum about that initial memory, the imprints that I have are all very negative on me. All these negative images, voices, sounds, sensations, the punishment, the self-criticism, the criticism from my mum. All of those negative impressions leave a really big impact on me. So if I can re-imprint, if I can change those impressions, if I can use my imagination and I can use my wisdom to gain more clarity on a different perspective of that scene. So if you'd been with me on the stage as a 3-year-old watching Cinderella, standing in her power, telling Cinderella she supported her, that Cinderella is not alone, that she does have a defender, that this brave, courageous, magnificent 3 or 4-year-old, she's here, she's going to help, she's going to make sure that those ugly sisters leave Cinderella alone, or that they start to treat her with the respect that she deserves, because she's worked really hard. She's just been cleaning out the fire, cleaning all the cinders. I know that that 3 or 4-year-old who's full of her own power, has her inner authority shining like a light there to support everybody, who lives from the heart. I'm sure that Buttons would be my new best friend. And I'm sure that Cinderella would be my second new best friend. And if they'd had the opportunity, I bet you they'd invite me to the ball. I might even get to be maid of honor at the wedding of Cinderella. What a fantastic way to see that memory. What a fantastic new light to shine on that memory, on that episode of my story from my past. Like, wow, how amazing. How amazing it is now when I think of that memory, when I think of the resources that that memory can bring me. It's okay to stand in my power. It's okay to speak my truth. It's okay to use my inner voice to bring up in me what feels really true to my heart, so that I can speak it out, so that I can share it with the world. The world can take it or leave it. You know, there's that beautiful saying by Dita Von Teese: you can be the juiciest, ripest peach in the fruit bowl, and there'll always be someone who hates peaches. So should I stop being juicy? Should I stop being sweet? Should I stop being ripe because somebody hates peaches? No. What other people think of me is none of my business. I can be sweet and juicy and ripe and lovely and be the peach that I am. My inner authority is peach-like. Who I am is I'm a juicy, ripe peach. And my heart knows this. My heart knows this. The sad truth is that my head is full of conditioning. My head is full of the conditioning that makes me feel that I'm substandard, that the voices that tell me I'm not good enough, the critical voices that tell me I'm not lovable, and the fearful voices that tell me I'm in danger. But they are not my voices. They're just voices in my head. They're like a recording of other people's voices, all those authoritarian, dictatorial, all those other dreadful words that have come from the institutions that are part of the society that we live in. But they are not me. They're other people who don't like peaches, so they're none of my business. It's unfortunate that we do live in a society where we are supposed to play by the rules, because who made up those rules? You know, nature has invented us as individuals, as beautiful, shiny, bright individuals. And then the media tries to mold us into one little box. Should be size 0. Should have I don't know, voice like Beyonce. And all of these shoulds, these shoulding all over you, this media shoulding all over me is totally denying who I am. And if I just be me, I don't have to do anything, just be me. Allow myself to be an expression of who I am, what my feelings are, what my emotions are, what my habits are, what my experiences are. All of this builds a stronger me. And the less I have to pay attention to all of these voices in my head, this conditioning in my mind that's not me, so that I can live from my heart, which is me, so that I can be true to my spirit, which is me, so that I can just be me. So I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be should. I don't have to have any of that conditioning to be me. So back to story. We were on story, weren't we? So you can see that when you can shift your story, it's possible to have a totally different outlook on life. So that my history, my story, those events and episodes from my past that have created all this impression, these imprints in my mind, there's lots of negative ones. And I now know ways, tips and techniques and lots of tools that I can use that can help me to have a different perspective. So it's like I can look up from my heart at those voices and recognize they're not me. And my heart knows that that courageous, brave, warrior-like 3 or 4-year-old, I think I was 3, I might have been 4. I was little, I was so little and so brave and such a great warrior and so courageous. And yet that society, that authoritarian society that I was brought up in as a child, didn't like that, didn't want me to stand out. There's that great Dr. Seuss saying, isn't there? You know, Dr. Seuss from the children's books, and it says, why do we spend our lives trying to fit in when we were born to stand out? And now I'm happy to stand out, and I'm happy to be that warrior and to be brave and courageous and be that 3-year-old who'll stand on the stage and tell the ugly sisters that they're wrong, that they're bad, that they shouldn't treat Cinderella so badly. I can point out the injustice in the world. Whether or not the world pays attention to me, I don't know. And I can't care because it's not under my control. But what I can care about is that I'm allowed to be the authentic me. And so with my story, with your story, we have this collection of events. Now, one of the things that I've come to understand as well is that there are things called significant emotional experiences or significant emotional events. Because have you ever thought about it? Why is it that we do remember some things, but we don't remember others? What's that all about? You know, my brother will say, oh, remember that night we were at this party and we were dancing and blah, blah, blah happened. And it draws a blank on me. I'm like, no, don't remember. But then I'll say to him, oh, well, remember that time when we were shopping and we did this and blah, blah, blah. And it's a really clear memory in my mind. And he says, nope, I don't remember. So what is it that makes some things stick and other things not stick? Well, one of the things that makes a memory sticky is if it's a significant emotional experience. So what does that mean? So a significant emotional experience is, it can be positive and it can be negative. The positive ones are where we have a light bulb moment, or where we have a shock that's a really pleasant surprise, or something happens to us that's really quite shocking, but shocks us into a positive state. And then we have the opposites. So we have trauma and we have negative shocks. And again, I come back to conditioning with this because don't you agree that it's true that we often are more able to spot what's wrong than what's right? And this comes back to the whole idea of being criticized. The idea behind criticism is to change our behavior. And as a social mammal, my parents wanted me to be included in the clan, to be accepted by the tribe, for other people to like me, basically. So from the goodness of their hearts, from them wanting me to be included in my society, to stay respected and yeah, just connected to my society, I had to behave in a way that fitted in the society box, little should be's, should do's, should haves, all that should stuff. And my parents wanted me to stay there. Unfortunately, that stops me from being myself, as I just explained. And so when we have, so our significant emotional experiences will often be where we've been slammed down by this criticism of another and we don't know what to do. And it can start to really make the beliefs about, I have to please other people to be safe. I have to please others to be included in society. I have to, all those conditions, I have to be's, I should be's, and I have to be's. Their beliefs and their habits, and they grow stronger and stronger. And often at a significant emotional experience, a negative significant emotional experience, a lot of those negative limiting beliefs and conditions are locked in to my experience, to my story, locked into my story. Now, with this matrix re-imprinting, we can go back and revisit these significant emotional events, and we can shift perspectives, and we can look at the other resources that were available in that moment. There's all great sayings and great quotes, aren't there, around how it takes great adversity and challenge in life to make us grow. But it also takes great adversity and challenge in life to make us shrink. So back to mistakes. So we spot mistakes easier than we spot things going right. We're perfectionists. We have fear of failure. We are mismatchers. And part of that was developed because at school, the teacher would put red pen on our books. Where did the red pen show up the most? That's right, where we made mistakes. So, you know, very rarely would you get 10 out of 10, brilliant, this was brilliant, this was fabulous, this was brilliant, this was fabulous. If you did, you're very fortunate you had some great teachers. But I know my personal experience, this was spelt wrong. You should have put a full stop here. This is a mistake. This mathematical problem wasn't solved correctly. Red pen highlighted all of the mistakes. So I've learned how to spot mistakes. We've all learned how to spot the mistakes. And in life, that goes on to develop into, most of us know what we don't want. We know when we make a mistake. We know what we don't want. We've got our inner critic constantly with its running commentary telling us you've made this mistake, you've done this wrong. What if it goes wrong? It gets projected into the future. What if you make a mistake again? You've got this fear of success, fear of failure, fear. Everything becomes fearful because all we ever do is look for mistakes and problems. But when we learn how to shift our perspective, we can start to spot the potentiality, the wonderful possibilities for success, for growth, for development. When we start to shift our perspective and see that my naughty, cheeky, gobby, opinionated self is actually courageous and brave and a heroine and a warrior, all of the positives, it's the same story. It's the same story. There are just different perspectives. So when we learn how to shift our perspective, when we learn to have a vision from a different place, so that can be from a different position in the room, from a higher perspective, from a lower perspective, when we learn to use our vision in different ways, we can actually begin to rewrite our personal story, our personal history, so that we are full of resources, so that we learn new strategies, or we learn to remember our old strategies that have been beaten out of us by society, and using those strategies again, using our inner authority, using our beautiful inner power, our innate beauty and wisdom, we can then go on into the future with all of those new strategies or those old strategies, with the new habits developing and growing, with the resources that we take from our shifted perspectives. And we can use all of that to become better every day. So I hope I've inspired you today. I hope that you have learned something new, remembered something about yourself that has given you a little bit more power, that has given you a little bit more of a positive resource. And understanding that our story is malleable. So we've got this neuroplasticity, which means the brain is malleable, the memories are malleable, the story is malleable. There's always more than one perspective on every situation. Always more than one perspective on every situation, which means there isn't one single truth. When it comes to memories and experiences, there isn't one single truth. There are many different ways to look at it. And so let's choose to find the powerful ways, choose to find the empowering ways to see our own past, our own history. And maybe we can learn how to see what used to be seen as a negative story about our past, a negative consequence and chain of events. We can shift that into positive and learn to grow and have a brilliant life, so that your vision of your future becomes rosier and rosier every day. So I'd like to say thank you to Marina for giving me the opportunity to share this with you today. It's been very empowering for me to be able to voice all of this. I've been studying this for a little while to do some trainings. And I'm creating a thing called Live, Love, Laugh Lessons with Cheryl Chapman, my business partner. And one of the lessons I've been working on is story. So it's been really great for me to be able to just get all of this out in a conversation. Thank you so much, Marina.
Wow, Marion, you know, you made me cry. And I know each one of our listeners feels the same. And feels the same because each one of us had to face the same, the atrocity of being singled out.
Mm-hmm.
And many, many times, and I'm sure each of our listeners could relate to this, they were living their life like being in a very crowded room, and yet they felt alone. But you know what, Marion? Because of you, simply because of you, I know I'm never alone.
Oh.
You know? And I hope our listeners feel the same. And I hope they do get in touch with you right now. Because tomorrow will never come the way you wanted unless you connect with Marion right now. To me, was a leap of faith. To me, was the universe wanted me to meet you.
Yes.
And that changed everything for me. And I want that change for every single one of our listeners, because each one of us deserves to have you in our lives.
Oh.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you, Marina.
Until next time, from both of us, is goodbye.
Goodbye.